Today we're going to cover 36 questions you should ask a personal injury attorney. Number 1, how long have you been practicing law? Now, the reason you ask this question is just to get a general overview of who you may be dealing with and what kind of experience he or she may have. Number 2, how long have you been practicing personal injury law? The reason you ask this question is because you want to know if the person actually devotes a significant portion of his or her time to practicing personal injury law. Just like you wouldn't have a foot doctor operate on your heart, you don't want someone who does contracts or family law to handle your personal injury case if they don't have experience with those sort of cases. Number 3, what percentage of your practice is focused on personal injury cases? You don't want someone who simply dabbles in personal injury law or occasionally takes a personal injury case. You need a lawyer who devotes a significant portion of his or her time to this practice area. The reason being is that way you're more likely to have someone who has a significant amount of knowledge about the inner workings of this practice area. 4, other law firms or attorneys refer personal injury cases to. Now, it's important to know this because a lawyer who gets referrals from other lawyers, that's a lawyer who knows what he's doing. Number 5, have you handled personal injury cases like mine? There's some lawyers only do car wrecks. Some lawyers only do premise liability cases, which is a situation where somebody is in an apartment or a store and is injured on somebody's premise. There's other lawyers who do only medical malpractice. There's lawyers who only do mass tort where there's chemical spills or explosions at chemical plants. I say all that to say, when you have a personal injury case, you want a personal injury lawyer, but you also want to make sure he or she handles personal injury cases like yours. Number 6, how much do you think my case is worth? Now, truth be told, at the very beginning of a personal injury case, the lawyer typically does not know how much the case is worth. If it's a death or you've already had surgery or you already have a recommendation for surgery, the lawyer may have more insight. If it's a very minor injury where you have a few aches in your back or neck, the lawyer may have an idea of what the case is worth. But the vast majority of cases, we have to wait. And what we primarily have to wait on are a couple of things. First and foremost, we have to wait and see what the doctors think. What are your injuries? What is the long-term prognosis? Number 2 is on the legal side. We have to verify and make sure there's enough money or insurance to fully compensate you for your injury. A sad outcome in many cases is that although people may have serious or significant injuries, oftentimes the person who caused the injury is underinsured to fully compensate the person for them. Number 7, how long do you expect it will take to resolve my case? Now, this is similar to number 6 because once again, here in Louisiana, I have to file a lawsuit within a year, but many people do not recover from their injuries within 1 year, or we don't have a picture of the long-term result of their injury. So oftentimes, depending on how seriously injured you are, that is the primary driving factor and indicator of how long it may take to resolve. Number 8, do cases like mine usually settle out of court, or do they typically go to? Most personal injury cases, well over 95% actually, settle out of court and do not go to trial. Sometimes the lawyer settles with claim adjuster. Other times when a lawsuit has to be filed, the lawyer will settle a case with the defense attorney for insurance company. And the third scenario is for cases that are taken to mediation, where the parties come together and there's a mediator who helps the parties reach a settlement agreement that's somewhere in the middle. The plaintiff doesn't walk away with everything he wants, and the defendant typically doesn't walk away paying zero. The parties actually have to agree on the amount, but at least it's some number somewhere in the middle that both sides can live. In the rare instances where the parties cannot reach an agreement before the trial date, the case will proceed to trial before a judge. But it's very unlikely that your personal injury case will go to trial. Number 9, Do you foresee any issues or difficulties with my case? There can be issues as to liability. Liability simply means who's at fault for causing this crash. The defendant may claim you caused the crash or you contributed to it, and that's known as comparative fault. So we may have to do some investigation into the facts surrounding the case to determine the extent of your liability. The second area of personal injury cases that typically has a lot of issues is when it comes to damages. Damages simply means what is the value of my case. Now, the defendants always want to minimize the damage, whereas the plaintiff lawyer representing the injured person wants to maximize the damage and get the client the most money he or she is entitled to. There's always going to be a fight as to damage. This is what leads defendants to demand your cell phone record, hire private investigators to follow you around, article medical records back 5, 10, 15, 20 years to see if the part of your body that you're claiming injuries for today is a part of your body that you injured when you were a kid. You played sports in high school. They will dig into everything to minimize you. Number 10, if I'm not satisfied with a settlement offer, are you prepared to take the case to? The lawyer's not willing to go to trial. I'm not saying he will go to trial or he has to go to trial in your case, but if he's at least not willing to go to trial, then he's not in a position to put enough pressure on the defendants or their insurance company to pay you the full reasonable value. Number 11, will you be the attorney that's actually handling my case, or who will be the attorney actually handling my case? Many law firms have multiple lawyers. Just simply need to know who's your point of contact, who is your lawyer. You can simply say, sir or ma'am, I know the firm represents me, but who is my lawyer? Who is the main lawyer on my case? You have a right to know that. Number 12, how often will I receive updates about my case? Early in the case, you may hear from the lawyer weekly or bi-weekly because there are a lot of moving pieces early on. As the case progresses through litigation, most firms have a practice of updating you every 30 days, some every 60 days, some every 90 days. Now, just because the lawyers have a policy of updating you, nothing prohibits you from calling. I would say monthly is reasonable, especially if the case has been going on. Calling monthly, say, hey, I'm just calling for an update. Is there anything new in my case? Certainly, if anything new happens in your life, you need to tell your lawyer. If there's another accident you're in or another injury you suffer, or if you're having issues with one of the medical providers, you don't like the doctor or you don't believe the care is working, you need to let your lawyer know when you guys do that periodic checkup. You need to let him or her know what's going on. 13, will I be able to speak directly with the attorney working on my case if I have questions or concerns? Obviously, this is something everyone has a right to, and I'd imagine the answer to this question will be yes. 14, what is your fee arrangement? Personal injury cases are handled on what's called a contingency fee contract. The lawyer gets paid when you get paid. Typically, the starting rate is 33 and a third. However, that 33 and a third usually increases to 40% when a lawsuit is. There's a written contract. The lawyer has to have a written fee contract in a contingency fee case. So you will be presented with a written contract that covers the attorney fees as well as how the cost of the litigation will be paid. Number 15, can you provide me with references or testimonials from some of your past clients? Most of us don't keep a database of that to share with new clients. However, we do have Google platforms. You can go on Google and check out reviews. You can go on social media platforms and see if lawyers have testimonials from clients. And obviously, you can ask the lawyer when you're talking to him or her. Number 16, has your license ever been suspended or revoked? If so, why? Now, this may seem like a challenging question, but it's a fair question. It's no different then wanted to know if a doctor's ever been suspended for something he or she did that was considered malpractice. 17, what is your reputation among your peers? Number 18, are you a member of any professional organization? If so, which ones and what are their purpose? Now, it's important to know that because most lawyers who do personal injury cases are going to be members of the Louisiana Association for Justice. If they're in Louisiana, they're going to be a member of the American Association for Justice. These are the types of organizations that typically hold conferences several times a year throughout the state or throughout the country, teaching lawyers information and new details on how to handle personal injury cases and the issues that arise in personal injury. 19, have you received any honors or, and the lawyer can answer that easily, fairly easily. And he or she should be able to tell you why he received the award or distinguished. Number 20, how many cases do you typically handle at a time? The reason you want to ask this question is it may help you gauge how much time the lawyer is going to have to devote to your case. Now, obviously, the more back office support the lawyer has, the more cases he or she can handle. 21, do I pay you if I lose my case? Most contingency fee contracts state that if nothing is recovered, nothing is owed. Number 22, am I responsible for any cost at all? Once again, this is usually covered in the contingency fee contract. Will the client be required to advance any cost, yes or no? If yes, then you guys will have to have a discussion about that, you and the lawyer. If no, just know the lawyer will advance all the costs on your behalf and will typically recover those costs when the case is settled or a verdict is reached. Now, the cost is typically separate from the attorney fee. So here's an example. If there's a $100,000 settlement and the attorney fee is 40%, that's $40,000. And now the lawyer has $10,000 in expenses. Well, that gets subtracted from 100 also, so it'll be 100,000 minus $40,000 in attorney fees minus $10,000 in costs, and that will leave the balance of the net to the client. 23, do I have to go to trial? We discussed that earlier. Most cases settle. In some cases, you do have to go to trial. If the defendant absolutely refuses to settle, then yes, you will have to go to trial. 24, who can I talk to about my case today? Hopefully, if you're peppering a lawyer with all these questions, you can talk to him or her about your case today. Sometimes, though, you may need to talk to his paralegal or his legal secretary or other support staff because there are many different things that have to be done in a personal injury case, and typically the lawyer isn't the person who does all of it. His support staff does do a lot. 25, you can ask the lawyer if he or she teaches other lawyers. You go to continuing legal education programs, and if so, are you ever invited to be a speaker? If so, what topics do you discuss? What happens if I'm partially at fault for the accident? I discussed that previously earlier, but this is called comparative fault. For example, if you're involved in an automobile accident and the case is worth $100,000, but you're 10% at fault, well, you will only be allowed to recover $90,000 because you have the 10% liability that's your fault will be deducted from the total. 27, how long does a personal injury lawsuit take to get a settlement? Once again, this is largely dependent on the injuries you have, the extent of the injuries. Has your medical treatment completed? Or is there ongoing treatment that you're having now with additional procedures needed in the future? The longer your treatment lasts, the longer your case is going to take to reach a resolution. The lawyer has to have a good idea of the long-term prognosis with respect to your injuries before he can fairly resolve your case. 28, how long do I have to file a personal injury claim? Here in Louisiana, you have 1 year from the date of the accident to file a lawsuit. If you do not, your case will prescribe, which means you lose your right to bring a lawsuit. Some other states have longer than 1 year, but there's only a 1 year prescriptive period in Louisiana. also known as statute of limitation, but that's a term used in other states. 29. How much does a personal injury lawyer cost? Once again, personal injury attorneys work on contingency fee contracts. We take a percentage of the case based on the overall settlement. 30. How can an attorney help? The lawyer can help you find the appropriate medical doctors. The lawyer can help by researching important legal issues that arise in your case. And the lawyer can help by simply counseling you through the process and keeping you aware and alert of things you should or should not be doing during your litigation. 31. What happens in a personal injury lawsuit? I'm going to give a simplified version. The lawsuit begins when your lawyer files a lawsuit in court on your behalf. The defendant has to be served and answer. Once the defense answers, you enter what's called discovery, which simply means you can demand evidence from each side, and each side is required to turn over certain evidence. So we'll send questions to the other side for them to answer, and they'll send questions to us to be answered by you and on your behalf. Additional discovery may include hiring private investigators to follow you around, so be careful. But we also do what's called depositions, where your lawyer, the defendant's lawyer, and a court reporter will come together in a room, typically a conference room at one of the lawyer's offices, and you'll be asked a series of questions. They'll dig into your background, your marital status, how many children you have, tell me your family history, have you been injured before, what's your work history. Any and everything that could be relevant to your case will be explored at your deposition. In fact, they actually get to ask you about certain things that would not be relevant and would never come up in court. But it's called discovery. Both sides get to ask questions to help discover issues that may be relevant in court. 32. What is the average settlement for a personal injury case? Once again, that is largely dependent on the extent of your injuries and the amount of coverage available to compensation for your injury. 33. How do I maximize my personal injury settlement? The best way to maximize it is to listen to the advice of the doctors. The second best way, listen to the advice of your attorney. 34. Does pain and suffering include medical bills? No. Pain and suffering is one element of damages. Medical bills is another element. There is also loss of enjoyment of life, lost wages, loss of earning capacity, which is your ability to earn wages, and you can recover for future losses related to all of these categories. So they're all factored in separately. However, when a case settles, you typically receive one check that includes everything. 35, what is fair compensation for pain and suffering? In every case, it's different. Even in situations where people have identical injuries. Here's an example. There's two gentlemen that have surgery, lower back surgery. One sits at a desk all day like me. The other works on the railroad. The individual who works on the railroad may potentially have a more valuable case. A, because his pain and suffering may be greater, because if he continues to work, he's going to have to work through pain and suffering. B, his lost wages or loss of earning capacity may also be greater because his ability to perform his job may be adversely affected, or more significantly adversely affected than an individual who sits in a chair all day. And 36, last but not least, can I file a personal injury lawsuit without a lawyer? The simple answer is yes. However, I would never or almost never recommend this. The lawyer is going to get you 10, 15, 20 times what you'll be able to get on your own because he'll be familiar with the inner workings of these sorts of cases. Other than a situation where you have zero injuries and you're simply trying to be compensated for property damage, such as damage to your vehicle or any other physical property you own that was damaged, I would say you may be able to get away without a lawyer. But if you have injuries, especially injuries that have not healed or have healed, or even if they have healed, they're going to continue to cause problems moving forward throughout the course of your life, you need an attorney to fully evaluate that. I hope you found this video helpful. If so, please hit like and subscribe and check out some of my other videos on this channel. And stay tuned because I will continue to release videos on a weekly basis. Thank you.